It has been unfair and wrong, not only to me, but especially to my family, but it's been wrong to my district as well. I have too much self-respect and dignity. I love my family way too much, and I do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president that we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms, and in turn be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. It's all so absurd and completely unserious.
What's up, folks? Welcome back to the show. So today we have some breaking news. Marjorie Taylor Greene is quitting Congress after she served there for multiple years. And it's coming on the heels of the feud that she's had with Donald Trump about the Epstein files. So we've been wanting the Epstein files for years. And Republicans have always been promising us, we'll get the Epstein files, we'll get the Epstein files. And why are the Epstein files important? Well, it's important because it kind of is the thread that unravels the entire ball. It is the thread that allows us to have a little look beyond the looking glass in how politics in the United States and frankly around the country actually works. There are powerful donors that pay off politicians. There are big lobbies that pay off politicians. There are groups of individuals who work behind the scenes to get politicians to comply, get them to serve their interest rather than the interest of the people who elected them into those positions. There's many ways of getting a politician to do your bidding. One of them is just attack the greedy ones. Well, give them a big fat check and they will, sell themselves to the highest bidder. And that's what we see a lot of politicians in Washington doing now. Another way is you can get blackmail material on them. Most of the people in politics, U.S. politics, and politics around the world are very corruptible people. They're weird people. They get up into these positions of power, and the first temptation to do something incriminating, the first temptation to, go to an island that sounds totally fun, they jump on that. So these are operations. These are all ways that our countries have lost our sovereignty because our politicians did not fight for us. They fight for the people paying them or the people holding blackmail over them. And that's what the Epstein scandal was all about. It was a look into how politics really works. There are operatives who work with intelligence agencies who manage to get blackmail on powerful individuals, whether they're rich people, politicians, no matter who they are. If they have power in a country, they are going to try to target them to either pay them off or to blackmail them. That's what the Epstein scandal was all about. It was a look into how U.S. politics really works and who's actually running the show in U.S. politics, and it's not your politicians, and it's certainly not we the people. So that's why Epstein and the whole Epstein files was such a big deal for people, because we feel like, we have the right to know what's actually going on. We have the right to know if elected politicians that we believed in, that we thought were carrying on, our values and fighting for America, we have the right to know if they are involved in a blackmail operation, if they're involved with intelligence agencies from across the globe. We have that right. So Republicans and we the people have been pushing for this for a long time. And we were promised this, and then Trump got into office and quickly just started running cover for Epstein. I don't think necessarily Trump has done anything untoward, though I wouldn't rule it out. And his actions up until now have been anything but incriminating. Saying they don't exist. There's no flight log. What are you talking about? They don't exist. People just rape themselves. There was no victims. What? So a little bit suspect, I'm not going to lie, a little suspect. And one of the major voices who's been pushing for the release of the Epstein files was Marjorie Taylor Greene. What you saw in the video we just showed was Marjorie Taylor Greene's statement as she is resigning from Congress. She's essentially being forced out of Congress because of this Epstein scandal and the attacks, the relentless attacks against her. So this basically, her and Thomas Massie is it. So I want to go through, I know it's a bit long, I think it's 10 minutes, but I want to go through the entire video and let's see what she has to say, because now she's not perfect, but she was one of the people that was actually in Congress in a position of elected political power that was actually fighting for us. She actually did seem to have America's best interest at heart. So let's take a listen to her statement and then we'll talk about it as well.
Hi, everyone. I've always represented the common American man and woman as a member of the House of Representatives, which is why I've always been despised in Washington, D.C., and just never fit in. Americans are used by the political industrial complex of both political parties, election cycle after election cycle, in order to elect whichever side can convince Americans to hate the other side more. And the results are always the same. No matter which way the political pendulum swings, Republican or Democrat, nothing ever gets better for the common American man or woman. The debt goes higher, corporate and global interests remain Washington's sweethearts, American jobs continue to be replaced, whether it's by illegal labor or legal labor by visas or just shipped overseas. Small businesses continue to be swallowed by big corporations. Americans' hard-earned tax dollars always fund foreign wars, foreign aid, and foreign interest, and the spending power of the dollar continues to decline. The average American family can no longer survive on a single breadwinner's income, as both parents have to work in order to simply survive. And today, many in my children's generation feel hopeless for their future and don't think they will ever realize the American dream. And that breaks my heart.
And this is important. What she's getting at right here is basically that two sides of the pendulum, right or left. Ultimately, you get certain different pros and cons with each. You get slightly different policies with each. But at the end of the day, are we any better with this system? And it makes me wonder, I'm like, okay, what do we do to fix this? Does this illusion of democracy, does it not even work? Has it just allowed us, the worst amongst us, to vote away our rights? Like, what's the alternative? It's like we need something new. We need something that's more representative of the people, because the system we have now is a joke. Everybody gets riled up during election season and you think you're getting your guy in, and then, yeah, it's a disappointment. Well, but next time, it's a hamster wheel. And we're the suckers that have been running that wheel that is generating them massive amounts of wealth and allowing them to accrue more and more power. And I think everybody collectively is coming to this realization that the left and the right are kind of the same thing. And it's just a way of dividing the people left and right. Obviously, there are the lost causes. You have the Antifa folks. You have these insane radical leftists that you can never align with. But there's a lot of people that vote Democrat that are probably just socially liberal, right? And they don't really even understand. They vote that way because their whole family has historically always voted that way. They vote that way because it's trendy. But this is the time for a coming together of left and right who are normal, who have just generally do care about America. And I think with this division amongst MAGA, with it falling apart, that the hope of that occurring is getting more positive every day, and I think that's a good thing. We want to try to align with people who are fairly normal. Are there going to be gives and takes? Yes, absolutely. But it's better to have a more unified collective front than a massively divided America that are fighting amongst themselves for really stupid things. We're fighting over politics, and you see how politics has worked. Are we better off? No, America just continually gets worse. So I'll let her continue, but spot on.
I ran for Congress in 2020 and have fought every single day believing that Make America Great Again meant America first. I have one of the most conservative voting records in Congress, defending the First Amendment, Second Amendment, unborn babies, because I believe God creates life at conception, and I love to fight for the little guy. Strong, safe borders, I have fought hard for that. I've fought against COVID tyrannical insanity and mandated mass vaccinations, and I've never voted to fund foreign wars with your hard-earned tax dollars. However, with almost 1 year into our majority, the legislature has been mostly sidelined. We endured an 8-week shutdown, wrongly, resulting in the House not working for the entire time, and we are entering campaign season, which means all courage leaves and only safe campaign re-election mode is turned on in the House of Representatives. During the longest shutdown in our nation's history, I raged against my own speaker and my own party for refusing to proactively work diligently to pass a plan to save Americans' health care and protect Americans from outrageous, overpriced, and unaffordable health insurance policies. The House should have been in session working every day to fix this disaster, But instead, America was force-fed disgusting political drama once again from both sides of the aisle on television every single day. My bills, which reflect many of President Trump's executive orders, like calling for a new census counting Americans only to draw new districts, making English the official language of the U.S., making it a felony to medically trans a minor, and other bills like eliminating capital gains taxes on the sale of your primary home and eliminating H-1B visas, just sit. They all sit collecting dust. That's how it is for most members of Congress bills. The Speaker never brings them to the floor for a vote. Many common Americans are no longer easily convinced by paid political propaganda spokespersons and consultants on TV and paid shills on social media obediently serving with cult-like conviction to force others to swallow the political party talking points.
See, and this is important. This is how you kind of know politicians who actually have convictions and care about the country, because they're the ones that will just vote Republican no matter what, despite the fact that could hurt America. She would actually go for anything that she felt was best for America, and that's important. You don't want somebody who's like, they're just, even these, this is why I've fallen out, because I've been MAGA my whole life. I voted for Trump every time I could vote for him. And I see this like they don't care. These people don't care. Even if Trump is doing something that's like blatantly terrible, like saying that Americans are not qualified to do jobs we're justified to import hundreds of thousands of more Chinese students because that's a great idea, because you and I, when we get out of college and we can't get jobs, or your children or grandchildren can't get jobs, well, that's because they're stupid, lazy, dumb, and they're not qualified to do those jobs. So that's why we should import more people. Even in that case, people were still coping online and saying, no, trust the plan, trust the plan. There is no plan. These people are paid politicians. Maybe when they first got elected, maybe they actually cared. But when you're in the swamp that long, it's going to rub off on you. You take the money, you make concessions, you start working with this person and working with that person. You're surrounded by consultants and advisors who are not America first, and they're paid shills. And then you see them quickly just go down the drain as well. And now what you're seeing is the few good ones that we have being weeded out. And Thomas Massie will be next, I guarantee you.
Because they know how much credit card debt they have, they know how much their bills have gone up over the past 5 years. They actually do their own grocery shopping and know food costs too much. Their rent has increasingly gone up and up. They have been outbid by corporate asset managers too many times when they put in an offer to buy a house. They have been laid off after being forced to train their visa holding replacement. The college degree they were told to earn only left them in debt with no big six-figure salary. They see more homeless people than ever on their own community streets. They can't afford health insurance or practically any insurance, and they just aren't stupid. These are the people I represent and love, because that is who all of my family and friends are, common Americans. I've been blessed to represent the 14th District of Georgia for 5 years. The district is filled with some of the most wonderful, kind-hearted, God-fearing, patriotic, hardworking people you will ever meet. Good, regular, common Americans. I've worked hard to bring taxpayer dollars back home to help district needs. I impeached Biden's Secretary of Homeland after watching my constituents die as he facilitated dangerous open border invasion into America. And I led the effort to defund hard-left politically biased NPR and PBS and the corrupt USAID, and I did that as chair of the DOJ subcommittee. I have fought harder than almost any other elected Republican to elect Donald Trump and Republicans to power. I traveled the country for years. I spent millions of my own money. I missed precious time with my family that I can never get back. And I showed up in places like outside the New York courthouse in Collect Pond Park against a raging leftist mob as Trump faced Democrat lawfare. Meanwhile, most of the establishment Republicans who secretly hate him and who stabbed him in the back and never defended him against anything have all been welcomed in right after the election. And I will never forget the day I had to leave my mother's side as my father had brain surgery to remove cancerous tumors in order to fly to Washington, D.C. to defend President Trump and vote no against the Democrats' second impeachment in 2021. My poor father and my poor mother, it was way too much for all of us. Through it all, I never changed or went back on my campaign promises and only disagreed in a few areas, like my stance against H-1Bs replacing American jobs, AI state moratoriums, debt for life 50-year mortgage scams, standing strongly against all involvement in foreign wars, and demanding the release of the Epstein files. Other than that, my voting record has been solidly with my party and the president. Loyalty should be a two-way street, and we should be able to vote our conscience and represent our district's interests because our job title is literally representative. America first should mean America first and only Americans first, with no other foreign country ever being attached to America first in our halls of government. Standing up for American.
And as you'll see, because after this video, we'll get into some of the responses to Marjorie Taylor Greene's resignation, and it's very glaring where the interests lie. You see how she kind of defined what America First is? It's for Americans and it's for this country. It's not for other countries. It's not for other interests. It should obviously be for this country and this country alone. But that's not how it works there. That sort of message when you're an American politician doesn't fly. No, it's every other country first and America last. And definitely Americans on the bottom of the totem pole. We will give money to everyone else, but Americans come absolutely last. And that is good American politics. And if you're not down with that program, well, you will be weeded out, like Marjorie Taylor Greene has been weeded out.
And women who were at 14 years old, trafficked and used by rich, powerful men, should not result in me being called a traitor and threatened by the President of the United States, whom I fought for. However, while yes, hurtful, my heart remains filled with joy, my life is filled with happiness, and my true convictions remain unchanged, because my self-worth is not defined by a man, but instead by God, who created everything in existence. You see, I have never valued power, titles, or attention in spite of all the wrong assumptions about me. I do not cling to those things because they are meaningless and empty traps that hold too many people in Washington. I believe in term limits and do not think Congress should be a lifelong career or an assisted living facility. My only goal and desire has ever been to hold the Republican Party accountable for the promises it makes to the American people and put America first. And I have fought against Democrats' damaging policies like the Green New Deal, wide open, deadly, unsafe border policies, and the trans agenda on children and against women. With that has brought years of non-stop, never-ending personal attacks, death threats, lawfare, ridiculous slander and lies about me that most people could never withstand even for a single day.
That's true, actually. If you go online for years, one of the most, like, the people that talk shit the most, it's always been directed at Marjorie Taylor Greene. You will see, like, everything, calling her ugly, calling her this, that. The personal attacks are insane, and you don't see this with other politicians. And again, the person who is persecuted, generally, they're probably more on your side, okay? Now, you can say, well, maybe they're persecuted because they're unlikable or they're this and that. Yes, there's those cases, but generally in politics, the one who's on the outsider, that's probably your best bet, is the outsider. Because if they're an insider, if they're rubbing shoulders and everybody loves them so much, they're firmly established as part of the establishment, and they are a traitor to the country.
It has been unfair and wrong, not only to me, but especially to my family, but it's been wrong to my district as well. I have too much self-respect and dignity. I love my family way too much, and I do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president that we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms, and in turn be expected to defend the president against impeachment after he hatefully dumped tens of millions of dollars against me and tried to destroy me. It's all so absurd and completely unserious. I refuse to be a battered wife, hoping it all goes away and gets better. If I am cast aside by the president and the MAGA political machine and replaced by neocons, big pharma, big tech, military-industrial war complex, foreign leaders, and the elite donor class that can never ever relate to real Americans, then many common Americans have been cast aside and replaced as well. There is no plan to save the world or a 4D chess game being played. When common American people realize and understand that the political industrial complex of both parties is ripping this country apart, that not one elected leader like me is able to stop Washington's machine from gradually destroying our country, and instead the reality is that they, common Americans, the people, possess the real power over Washington, then I'll be here by their side to rebuild it. Until then, I'm going back to the people that I love, to live my life to the fullest as I always have, and I look forward to a new path ahead. I'll be resigning from office with my last day being January 5th, 2026, and I look forward to seeing many of you again sometime in the future. May God bless you all, and may God bless America.
Pretty sad, huh? Well, there you go. There's one less patriotic America First candidate in our positions of political power. And the reactions to this are, well, from the usual suspects, very, very expected. It's to be expected. Before we get on to the reactions, I'm going to throw it to a quick ad, and then we'll be right back and talk about the reactions that this statement has caused in, amongst the shill community. The world seems to get crazier by the day, people driving like maniacs, ignoring common sense and decency, and as a result, people get hurt. You can do everything right and still end up with hospital bills, insurance companies that don't call you back, and a ton of stress that you never asked for. That's when you need somebody who actually fights for you. Not for the corporations, not for the insurance companies, but for the people. There's a reason political commentators see the angles no one else does. Just like there's a reason why Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. They've recovered over $25 billion for everyday people just like us. And the best part? If they don't win, you don't pay. So if you've been hurt in a car crash, at work, or anywhere, you can go to www.forthepeople.com/Lilly, or you can just click on the link in my description and see if you have a claim. Because in a world that's getting crazier by the day, you deserve someone who's actually on your side. All right, we're back. So like as promised, we got to talk about the reaction that this has had amongst the community of shills who hate America and are definitely not America first, and they hate anyone who stands in the way. I think you'll see this as a reoccurring pattern. If you stand in the way, if you present yourself as a cog in the wheel of the machine that is fighting for their own agendas, you will be destroyed. Just like we see Marjorie Taylor Greene resigning. If anything, for my conspiracy people out there, remember when Thomas Massie went on to Tucker Carlson's show? Thomas Massie, who's another America First patriot in our position, in our political system. Did you notice and think it was a little bit coincidental and odd that Thomas Massie goes on to Tucker Carlson's show and exposes AIPAC and AIPAC handlers on politicians and basically how the whole lobbying organization works, how that whole monster really works, where you take the money and then you're delved out a person to make sure you are using that money wisely and serving the interest of not Americans, but the donor class, that group of individuals who want to use America for every resource it can offer, suck us dry, absolutely drive every resource, every opportunity to fight every war of theirs, to have our young men's blood spilled on the soil of foreign countries. And that's basically what he did. He went on Tucker Carlson's show, and then very interesting, like right after that, his wife mysteriously dies. I'm sure that's nothing. There's no coincidence there. We're not dealing with like billions of dollars. We're not dealing with countries who, specialize in assassinations. We're not dealing with any of that. So of course that's a coincidence. Of course it's a coincidence. But again, as you'll learn, there are no coincidences in politics. There are no coincidences generally when you are talking about big money and big power and intelligence agencies. So generally not a lot of coincidences there. Okay, so let's get into this doozy of a tweet. This is Randy Fine. We love Randy Fine, don't we? He's so attractive. Ugh, I cannot stand this man. I cannot stand his man. And if you have taken a look at the physiognomy, it's very unpleasant. So he's quote tweeting Marjorie Taylor Greene in her statement about leaving Congress, and he says, "One anti-Semite down, one to go," meaning Thomas Massie. So, but of course, our government, we are perfectly sovereign. We have sovereignty, we have freedom in this country, and every politician is just looking out for America's best interests. And there's no other ties. There's no one else behind the scenes that's actually controlling America. It's just Americans representing America and America's interests, not like powerful groups of people, individuals, lobbying groups. Not that they have any sway. Little self-report there by Randy Fine. Let's take a look at who Randy Fine is. This is interesting, bit incriminating. So speaking of the money, well, it should be no surprise that Randy Fine has received $458,000 from AIPAC. I don't even know why they bother paying him. He's already a good, well, he's not American, let's just say that. He's not white either. Received from the pro-Israel lobby, AIPAC. Lovely. Here's some statements of his. U.S. Congressman, Gaza needs nuked like Hiroshima. Remember that time that he was also laughing about dead babies? Because that's totally appropriate to do. Fine called Ireland an anti-Semitic country after it recognized the state of Palestine in May of 2024. He pledged to introduce a bill to ban Florida government entities from contracting with Irish, Norwegian, and Spanish companies. So now you're getting involved in U.S. trade with white countries and white allies. So you claim to represent a country that's our greatest ally, but we're not allowed to work with any other white Western nations. Okay, that's totally makes sense, which, by the way, these same people are destroying our diplomacy with our European friends. Like when they sent a strongly worded letter, the ambassador to France sent a very strongly worded letter to Macron, chiding him for not doing enough to crack down on anti-Semitism. Because that's really great for our relationships with France. I would rather us be aligned with France than with maybe a country in the sand. On October 10th, 2023, Fine arranged for regards from Randy Fine to be written on an artillery shell to be fired on Gaza, and later arranged for messages on 2 more shells. Yeah. That's who Randy Fine is. Sounds like he's really America first. Sounds like he's definitely a It's like, why are you... Have you considered maybe moving to Israel and becoming a congressman there? Have you considered being a politician for them? Because you're doing a lot of fighting on their behalf. But why is it being done here? I have a question about that. Like, is that not strange to anyone that we have politicians like Ted Cruz, who says their number one goal is to help strengthen our relationship with Israel? Does that seem interesting to anyone that we have politicians in the United States that are supposed to be fighting for the United States' best interest, and instead they are fighting the wars of another country miles and miles away from us? It's a little bit strange, don't you think? So again, he was like, 1 anti-Semite down, 1 more to go. Oh, so America is no longer allowed to have politicians that are not pro another country? So what you're saying is, if there was ever a truly America first politician who ran for office, you would make sure that they wouldn't succeed in running, despite the fact that the Americans would support them overwhelmingly? That's what you're saying? So that you're saying there's essentially a blockade in politics, maybe a blacklist. If you say anything, inappropriate, or you dare to utter the words America first, you will not be allowed to hold a position of political power in the United States. Despite that, this is America. Like, are we forgetting that this is America? I guess so. We looked at that. Here's Nick Fuentes' statement. Marjorie Greene was forced out of Congress by Donald Trump for criticizing Israel and voting to release the Epstein files. Facts. In other words, Trump destroyed his biggest loyalist for putting America first. This is why I didn't vote. MAGA is dead. And it is. And right now what you're seeing, too, is you're just seeing people who are not America first, and they're hiding under the cloak of MAGA. They're pretending like they're MAGA. So if you criticize them for being truly loyal to another country, you're criticizing MAGA. You're not actually MAGA. You know how many times I've been told, you're not MAGA. well, actually, I'm America first. I was MAGA whenever I thought a MAGA stood for America first. But as soon as I found out that it doesn't, that it stands for more of the same, that it stands for sending more billions to another country, that it stands for ruining diplomacy with white countries that I think we should be nurturing those relationships with, when it stands for endless wars, never-ending wars, then yeah, I'm actually out. So you go ahead and continue to call yourself MAGA, Make America Great Again, while you were actively using your position to promote the interests of another country, another people, another nation. Good. Good to know. Here's Candace Owens' take. Communications from Trump admin be like, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a traitor for demanding a convicted child rapist have his files released. But we are standing by Mike Huckabee, who met with a literal treasonous Israeli spy, Jonathan Pollard. Right. It's just incredible, really, the hypocrisy going on and the gaslighting. They're trying to gaslight the American people into thinking if you support your country, if you don't want just endless migration into your country, if you don't want politicians fighting for another country's interests, you're not MAGA. You don't belong. You don't belong. And that's what everybody on the dissident right, or I should say just the right, the correct right, the common sense right, the people who are patriots and care about this country, they have all been blacklisted from these organizations. I am not welcome at mainstream conservative conferences. Why? Because I'm America first. You will not be welcome. You will be blacklisted. You might even be thrown out of the event. And that is MAGA now. But I don't even like to say that. MAGA was a revolution at the time because they echoed the sentiments of Americans. Whether it was genuine or not, it ignited a firestorm around the globe of we want nationalism again. We want our countries put first again, and we want our people put first again. So regardless of how MAGA started or how it wound up, that spirit is still alive and well within the people. But the politicians echoing these statements and claiming to be MAGA, they are not. They're not genuine. They call us frauds. They call us the woke right. They say that we're not genuine and we changed. You got radicalized and you changed. Oh yeah, America. Since when is America first? Since when is putting America first and our interests first and our people first? Since when is that radical? Since when? What? But that's considered radical. No, we didn't change. You just showed your true colors. Or you changed. But I don't think they changed. They've always been disloyal to the United States. They've always been pro the lobbyists, the donor class, and those people that actually control our government. They just showed their true colors. So now we can no longer identify with MAGA. We identify with America first because that's what we want. That's why we voted for Trump. That's why I voted for Trump. Because he said America first. He said we're done with the special interests. He won because we thought he wasn't owned. Well, if you're angry at the people for abandoning ship, well, it was a sinking ship. It was a fraud from the beginning. We were just tanking. We were fools. We can admit that. I can admit that. I was stupid. I thought a politician could actually change things. And that's why I push for white unity. That's what my number one goal. That is, if you want to know what I stand for white unity. And that's white unity amongst all white countries. That's what I care about. And I care about each country, each white country putting their countries first. I stand for nationalism for each country, nationalists for Romania, Norway, and the United States. I'm an American nationalist. I want my country being put first, and I want unity between all white people because we need to realize we're the global minority, and they are out to get us. They are hell-bent on destroying our countries and our nations. Anyway, long rant, but I hope you enjoyed it, and go and give Marjorie Taylor some love. Poor thing. I hope she can now just kind of enjoy some peace in her life because talk about being attacked and railroaded. And that's got to hurt when you put everything on the line to support a president who then turned around and stabbed you in the back, figuratively. But that is the state of U.S. politics, and I would say that's the state of politicians and the government around the globe. They are bought off, they're paid for, or they're blackmailed. And that's why we cared about the Epstein files, and that's why Marjorie Taylor Greene is going down. That's why they got her out of there, because she pushed for something that the American people wanted. She wanted disclosure, and she wanted to expose how politics actually works. And now she's ousted. She's ousted, rather, from politics. But at least we know there's one left, one more anti-Semite left, Thomas Massie. Because now it's, if you're America first, you're automatically anti-Semitic, which isn't that a bit telling of a statement too? So what does that mean? If you're considered anti-Semitic because you're America first, wouldn't that kind of imply that those people are not America first? I don't know. An interesting question I'll leave you with. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you in the next one.